Witamy serdecznie po przerwie.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back after the break. And the second part of our conference is going to be opened by Jędrzej Sołowi, an educator, a coach, a teacher of English, a certified coach of the Odyssey of an Idea, and he's related with games for all his life, basically. First as a gamer, then as a person who is promoting games in education. And Mr. Sołowi will present about Games Unplugged. Hello, thank you very much, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank both Agnieszka and Alexandra for organizing this conference, because I know how much effort it requires even organizing the conference offline. Now, if we need to move into digital, virtual world, it can be even more difficult. I remember that I was contacted between Christmas and New Year's Eve 2020. So how many weeks did it take to present such a great conference? So my congratulations and thank you for the invitation, of course. I would like to thank all the participants of the conference as well. I'm really happy that in this pandemic reality where life and circumstances are causing problems rather than favor education, you're here. You're standing here on guard, because your presence here for me means that it's not just your job, just your way to make a living, but you want to do it. That's why you attend such conferences, to learn more for yourself, for your students, for your colleagues sometimes. So thank you, dear audience, for being here as well. As Agnieszka mentioned, I'm a very active gamer, video games here. I'm talking about video games here, so I'm very happy that they are so popular today. But I'm also an avid fan of board games. Let me just adjust the camera here to show you how many games do I have. This is my board games collection. That I don't have so much time for playing, but thanks to having so many of them, I know what a great value they can be. And in the next 20-something minutes, I would like to tell you about my observations, my conclusions about such form of entertainment. I wonder, why are they so popular, first of all? Why have they been with us for so long? I think it has something to do with the person being a social entity, social being, homo civitas. We want to meet other people, and we have been meeting other people for thousands of years. First, we've been exchanging words, sitting at the campfire. These elders, 20-something years old, probably. This is when you were an elder in the prehistoric times, shared stories, and then somebody in history invented a board game, and that allowed us to experience something that is in our core, meeting with another person, being together, to survive things together, experience things together, and then exchange ideas as well, exchange knowledge, exchange opinions. And I think board games show that perfectly. well. The need for interaction, which is, in my opinion, a basis in education as well. Education, in my opinion, should be relation-based, based on partner relations, full of respect, full of understanding, and then full of mutual curiosity. So that's in terms of introduction. Why board games are such a great tool? Well, that leads me to my personal example. Why do I like the unplugged games? Because the fact that computer games allow you to immerse in a virtual world, that's one thing. But why do I still come back to these more complicated games like Monopoly, not as flashy games like Monopoly, for example? So a couple of reasons. I think it's important that board games have specifically defined rules, and using them requires analyzing the rules and applying them to a specific situation. So board games are quite analytic. Computer games can also be analytic, but still, in board games there is always a printed manual you can return to and analyze it. What the ladies said in their presentation, they analyzing the rules and knowing that it's a binary thing. There is a rule and there is an effect. So you either stick to the rules or not, and that's as simple as that. There is no bargaining involved. There is no gray area involved. And it's an important element that needs to be developed in young people. Another element is that these board games are physical. You can touch them. They are very tactile. I'm the person who likes touching things, looking at things close up. This is very important for me as well. And I think even VR games can't give you that feeling. One of the previous speakers said that you can experience a lot in VR, but still, moving a checker or passing some money is an intrinsic experience. Of course, here come the augmented reality games, and this is a mixing of these two. This encompasses this element. But I wanted to mention one game as an example here of this mix between the virtual and traditional world. There's a game called The Sims, and it's based on playing your life and struggling with the problems that life poses. It's a virtual game, but there is also a board game called Home or House, which is very similar in terms of its core assumptions. There is a board, as you can see, a two-story house, and we need to renovate it. It's a very nice analog alternative to The Sims that allows young people to touch these elements, this board, even. Analyzing what kind of other games I could show you, I also got to an interesting interpretation of how rules function in virtual and digital games and how do they function in board games. In computer games, everything is embedded in the game code. Even though it teaches creativity, we are limited by what its creators, its designers provided for us. Of course, there are a lot of multi-layered games with many pathways, but still, in The Sims, we won't be able to create an absolutely random object because we need a specific group to choose. In such a board game, there's not a problem. A child can add a card and a piece of furniture, for example, that they want to really put in the room. It can be a trophy. They won on some important competition. They want to put it in the living room, for example, or in their room, so that everyone can see that trophy. So this is an amazing benefit, advantage of a board game over a video game. And to refer to what Alexandra or Agnieszka said at the beginning of their presentation about the elements that appeared in The Sims, about creating an avatar and having a specific gender, not necessarily the same gender as we have. So these freedom, elements of freedom being there. From my own experience, I am this 15-year-old boy who could create a single gender couple and see that, well, life is possible living that way. So that gave me such a great power in agreement with my nature, with my feelings. So I think it's very important. And I think that games can be this great medium that will give young people the strength, the power of being what they want to, who they want to be. So I think it's great, Alexandra, that you mentioned that, because I did want to mention it myself. A very important element of games in general that I wanted to mention. Additional one, company. Additional point, company. This is what, again, board games do better than video games, because of course we can have multiplayer option, but we're still in our room, in our own flat, alone, on our own usually. So there is no physical element of being with another person, contacting a real person. Board games give us that. Of course, lockdown, social distancing, and so on. This whole pandemic and post-pandemic reality makes multiplayer games attractive, because they give us something that board games could not give us anymore. But still, I believe that there's nothing better than meeting with a group of friends, students, and spending a great 45, 60, 90 minutes playing a game together. What is really great in board games as well is the element of competition or cooperation, depending on the game, of course. It can either the game, I mean, can either make players to compete to get the best score, but also there are games that assume cooperation of all the players against the game, against the system. For example, there is a game called Escape, I think. I'm not sure if it's popular, but it's based on the fact that there are 10 minutes. There is a hourglass that you need to turn at the beginning of the game. That gives you the 10 minutes limit. And you need to escape a pyramid that is randomly generated from the cards that were created by the game participants. So the game assumed, on one hand, is that all the players want to survive, escape successfully from this collapsing pyramids, and they need to help each other. But on the other hand, there were elements that this cooperation was not always a priority, because the secondary goal was to take with you, while escaping, the biggest amount, the biggest number of diamonds or other valuable things. So first of all, you were fighting with the system, with the game, but also the game assumed that some players may use this opportunity and benefit from the harm of other players to win the secondary goal. So these points, in my opinion, make board games and are making and will make board games a constant part of our life. And I think it's natural that the thing that people like, they know from their homes, it's natural to use it in different aspects. Here, in education, to be more precise. But more and more often, board games are also used in corporate trainings as well. Why? Because they use mechanisms that people know. Let me just have a sip of water.
If you can see, this is like glass. It looks like something like a game. What is your first impression? What is the game like? You can write on the chat name of the game. What are your ideas? Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. And this is the motive I would like you to stay with you, the slogan that should stay with you. If you even remember one part, remember this: educational game should be a good game, and then it should educate. So first of all, we need to think as educators that a child, a young person, has fun while playing the game. Because if we will force the game that is not resonating with teenagers or children, then we may have totally different results. They won't want to play a game anymore. And if they immerse into the game, if they are interested in the game, they will learn by the chance. And this is the best idea, because children in kindergarten, they learn by playing, they learn by imitating. Why shouldn't we translate it into the further steps of education, primary school, high school? So I think that telling students, now you go to high school, your fun will stop, now it will be serious learning. Well, fun shouldn't stop, playing shouldn't stop. Everyone wants to have fun. That's why we work, that's why we learn to have money and then spend money on pleasant aspects of the life. And I think that educational game at the beginning is a game, and then it is something educational. Now I would like the operator to play the film I've prepared for you, presenting one of the games I would like to describe and discuss.
Proszę zobaczyć, to jest właśnie jedna z moich
Here it is.
ukochanych gier
One of my
planszowych,
favorite
Ticket to
games,
Ride w oryginale.
board
To
games,
jest taka
Ticket to Ride in
edycja na
original,
10-lecie
beautiful
tej gry,
edition
którą kiedyś wprowadziłem do moich przyjaciół.
commemorating
Prawda jest
10th
taka, że ja w
anniversary of
ogóle
the
w nią
game.
nie gram,
And
tylko mam na półce,
I
więc
usually
nie
have
muszę
to
o
tell
niej
you that I
dbać.
don't play the
Ale dla
game.
Państwa prezentuję
It's on the
dzisiaj
shelf,
wyjątek i
and I
wyciągnąłem
look
tę
after
grę,
the
żeby
game,
pokazać
but
Państwu,
I
jak
took it out of the shelf
piękna
just to
ta
show
gra
you
potrafi być.
how beautiful this
Jest
game
właśnie
can
tutaj
be.
niesamowicie pociągnięty ten element
Wonderful
fizyczności. Proszę
element
zobaczyć,
of
piony nie
physicality.
są w jakichś
Look,
woreczkach,
pawns
ale
are
są
not
w takich
in
wspaniałych
foil,
puszkach. A jak
but
Państwo
in
je,
wonderful
jak
metal
pokażę
boxes.
Państwu,
If
jak
you
wygląda
open the
pojedynczy
metal boxes, if you
pionek,
look at
to
the
jest
pawn,
prawdziwy wagonik, to jest
it's like a
prawdziwy wagon
real
tutaj,
carriage.
tym razem zoo. Każdy gracz
A
ma
zoo,
inny typ
carriage of a
wagoników.
zoo.
W
So
zoo
each
jest
person, each player has a different
podążający węgiel,
pawns,
pociąg,
coal carriage,
pociąg
train carrying
pasażerski,
coal,
pociąg
passenger
przewożący
train,
whisky? Soki.
train
Soki. Jeżeli gramy z osobami mniej niż
that
18,
transports
przewozić soki
juice
też, tak.
or
I
whiskey for
zastanawiałem się,
adults.
jak tę grę
And
można
I was
użyć
thinking
na
how to
zajęciach na różnych
apply, have
przedmiotach.
used the game
I pomyślałem
during
sobie o
different
takich
classes.
3 przedmiotach,
And I
które
was thinking about
chciałbym Państwu
3
teraz
subjects I
przedstawić.
would like
O
to
takich 3
present to
przedmiotach
you.
szkolnych, ale jestem bardzo ciekaw, czy Państwo
But I'm really
możecie pomyśleć
interested
o
if
innych
you
przedmiotach
can
albo
think
o
of
innych
other
założeniach do
subjects
tych przedmiotów,
or
o
of
których za
other
chwilkę powiem. Więc znów
ideas
serdecznie
to
zapraszam
my
do
subjects I will mention.
dopisywania w
So if you can, please
na
share
czacie.
your ideas
Także
on the
chciałbym Państwu
chat.
teraz pokazać.
So I want to show you
O
now
właśnie.
my
I chciałbym
ideas
porozmawiać chwilkę o tych 3 przedmiotach, bo
and talk
oczywiście
about the 3
geografia jest tutaj
subjects.
jakby
Geography
pierwszym przedmiotem,
is the
który
first
przychodzi do
element,
głowy,
the first
bo
subject
młodzież
that
może
comes to mind
patrzeć
because
na planszy
teenagers
i
can look
uczyć
at the
się
board and learn
topografii kontynentu, kraju,
topography of
ale
the
również
continent of the
trochę
country, but
bardzo
also
szczegółowych elementów, jak na przykład to, gdzie
learn more
miasta się
detailed
wobec
elements. For
siebie
example,
znajdują, jak
where
są zlokalizowane,
are
jak
located the
można je ze sobą
cities,
połączyć.
how can
A
we
idąc jeszcze
connect the
dalej tym tematem,
cities.
można
If we
pomyśleć,
go
jak
further, we
kształtowanie
can think
terenu
how
sprawiło, że te
the
miasta się
terrain
rozwijały. Jak na
um,
przykład w
affected
stulecia
the
wcześniej
development of the cities. For example, hundreds
handel,
years ago, the trade,
podróżowanie
how
wyglądało pomiędzy
trade
tymi
and
miastami.
traveling look like
Jeżeli chodzi o
in the
historię,
past
to
between the
jak dla
cities.
mnie
If we look
bardzo
at
fajnym przykładem może
history
być tutaj
lesson, great
może
example
nie
can
tyle
be
plansza Stanów Zjednoczonych, ale
maybe
chociażby
not
plansza
only the board
Europy,
of the United
gdzie
States, but the
można
board of
byłoby
Europe,
zachęcić młodzież do
where
tego,
you
żeby
would
zrobiła
encourage
analogiczną
students to
mapę XVIII
prepare
wieku
a
i żeby
similar
zobaczyć,
map of
jak
the 18th
wtedy
century and
kształtowały
then to
się
compare the map and look at
granice
the
państw.
differences,
Jak to
look at
wtedy
the borders
wyglądało?
of the
Czy
countries.
niektóre miasta były może w innym kraju?
Were
Jakiej
some
wielkości był
cities, towns
obszar
in
danego
other
kraju?
countries?
To są
How
też
big
bardzo ciekawe
was our
elementy, które mogą
country
zostać
or
w
a
bardzo
given
fajny sposób
country to
wprowadzone
discuss? So
po
such elements can be
takiej
easily
grze
implemented
planszowej.
after playing the game.
Ale jeszcze fajnym bardzo założeniem jest
One of the another
matematyka
elements of this
oraz
game
ekonomia.
is
Dlatego,
mathematics and
że
economics
można
because
pociągnąć to również w kierunku
for example, we can use
planowania,
this game
biura
for
podróży.
planning,
Jak najbardziej
planning a travel
ekonomiczne do
agency,
zaplanowania
and
kosztów
the most
związanych z
economical costs,
zaplanowaniem
planning the
wycieczki po
budget
całej
of the travel
Europie.
agencies. For
Można
example,
też
we are
na przykład
organizing a
poszukać
trip
trasy
around
Orient Expressu
Europe.
i
We can look at
zahaczyć
Orient
o
Express route
literaturę
and also refer to
Agaty Christie na
literature,
przykład, prawda? Także
Agatha
proszę
Christie
zobaczyć, że jest
literature.
tutaj bardzo dużo
So
elementów,
many,
które
many different elements
można
that can be
użyć.
applied
I
during
jeszcze
the
chciałem
lesson.
wspomnieć o grze Dixit,
I would like
którą
to mention Dixit
mam
game.
nadzieję, ale też
I
mogę z dużym
hope
prawdopodobieństwem założyć, że wielu
and
z
I
Państwa
can
zna
hope you know.
dlatego,
Probably
że
you know
pozwoli
and you
sobie na
play the
takie
game.
wypunktowanie
That's
kilku
why only bullet
umiejętności
points
bądź też
of several
użyć,
activities
do
or
których uważam
skills
Dixit jest rewelacyjny. Po
I
pierwsze
think
jest to świetny
Dixit develops.
icebreaker, czyli
First of
takie
all, great icebreaker.
narzędzie,
So
które pozwoli
a great
rozpocząć jakiś
tool
warsztat,
allowing to
rozpocząć jakieś
start a
spotkanie,
workshop,
rozpocząć jakąś
a
lekcję
meeting,
specjalną,
a special lesson
ale on
with your
również
students.
pozwala w pogłębianiu wielu
But it also allows
umiejętności
to
miękkich,
deepen
czyli nie tylko
some soft
kreatywność oraz
skills, not
interpretację,
only creativity
ale
and
również
interpretation, but
umiejętność
also
tworzenia historii,
the ability to
kreatywnego
create stories,
dopowiadania tego,
storytelling,
co było na przykład przed
creatively
bądź po.
telling what happened
Jest to też
before or
bardzo
what will
fajne
happen in the
narzędzie,
future.
takie
So it's a great
delikatne
tool,
narzędzie
also a very delicate
terapeutyczne,
tool for
diagnozujące, aby zobaczyć, jak
therapeutic
młodzież, jak
purposes to
odbiorca
analyze, to
reaguje
see
na
how teenagers
konkretną
react
kartę.
to
Co ciekawe,
particular
gra Dixit
cards.
ma również swoich
Dixit
braci i siostry. To są
has
tacy
sisters and
gier takich jak
brothers,
Lords of Xidit, czy jedna z moich
Lords of
ulubionych gier
Exidit,
strategicznych Seasons. Co jest
or
fajne,
Seasons, one of my favorite
wszyscy
strategic
gry jakby
games.
rozgrywają się w
All
tym samym
these
świecie, w tym
games
samym
are
uniwersum, ale
taking
każda
place in the
kładzie
same
nacisk na coś troszkę
universum,
innego.
but each
Dixit jest
game
grą bardzo
focuses on something
narracyjną.
else. Dixit
Lords of
is a very
Xidit
narrative
to jest
game.
gra
Lords
taka
of Seeded is
strategiczna,
a
bardziej
very strategic
wąskowyskowa,
game, military game,
militarystyczna. Natomiast Seasons jest takim bardzo
and
fajnym
Seasons
symulatorem
is a
trzyletniego
very
konkursu
nice
magicznego, który
simulator
ma
of a
wyłonić nowego
3-year magic
arcymaga krainy
competition that is
Xidit. Więc
to
świetnie narracyjny element.
show who is the mag of
I na
the
sam koniec
universe, who
chciałbym
is the best mag
wspomnieć
of the
o
universe.
grach RPG. A
And
tutaj
at the end, RPG
według mnie
games,
przykład
I think the best
systemu
example
RPG, czyli
of the
Dungeons
RPG
and
system,
Dragons. Ja sobie tutaj
Dungeons and
pozwoliłem
Dragons.
Państwu przygotować, tak mam trochę taki
I prepared
tutaj
for you something.
kuferek niesamowitości, bo czasami jak przychodzę na
It's
zajęcia
I have a
rady
box with
pedagogiczne, warsztaty launchuję w
treasures.
to
Sometimes
spotykałem
when
z
I
wózkiem gier planszowych i
do my
rozkładamy.
workshops,
Staram
and
się
I have a
zamiast to
box
Państwu teraz
of
pokazać.
board games
To
with me
jest,
always.
szanowni Państwo,
And
to
this is what I want to
była
show you.
z
It was
podręcznikami do gier
a
RPG. I
game
chcę Państwu to pokazać dlatego, że
with some
tysiące,
books
setki tysięcy
that were
nastolatków z
that accompanied the
zapaleniem
books.
wersuje się w
Thousands of
mrówek
teenagers
mistrza,
are
właśnie
reading
czytując 100
these
stron.
books,
To jest w ogóle w języku
over
angielskim.
1,000 pages
Ale
in English.
młodzież robi to dlatego,
But
że ma
teenagers
cel, dlatego, że po prostu chce
read it
zagrać w grę.
because they have an aim, because they want to play
I
the game.
mogą Państwo pomyśleć, że to jest niesamowicie
You can think that
skomplikowany
this is
system i
very
jakby nie da się go
complicated
używać
system
na
and that
lekcji.
this
Nic
system
bardziej
cannot be
mylnego. Na
applied
warsztacie ja
during
będę
the
właśnie
lesson.
trochę
But
głębiej
this is wrong, actually.
wchodził w
During the
tematykę
workshop, I
tego
will go
systemu
deeper
RPG.
into the system
Ale absolutnie
RPG
można
games during
wyciągać
the classes.
pojedyncze, drobne
But
elementy
also,
systemu
we can
RPG.
take only some
I
element from
wpaść
RPG
w zajęcia,
games
bo RPG
and
to jest coś innego
move
jak
them, transfer them
role-playing
into the
game,
lesson.
czyli
So
po
it's
prostu gra
role
w
play
odgrywanie
game.
postaci. A
So
te opasłe
students
tomiczka to
can
są
play
tylko
different games,
zasady,
and these
instrukcje.
books are only the
A równie
rules,
dobrze
only
można przecież
instructions to
zrobić coś
the
na tyle
game.
kreatywnego, że praktycznie
We
wszystkie
can do
zasady
something more
wyrzucić za
creative,
okno.
that
A
we
pewnie
can
ostatnio nie zrobimy
get rid of
książkami,
all
bo nie skończycie
rules,
z biciem szyby.
but maybe don't
Swoje
break
własne zasady.
the class with the book,
I
but
to jest właśnie
create
tak
your own
niesamowite w
rules.
grach
Get rid of the book,
planszowych,
create your own
że
rules, your
młody
own
człowiek
instruction. And
może
this is wonderful
z
in the
bardzo
board
dużą
game, that
łatwością
young
napisać
people can
własne
easily
zasady do
write
gry,
their
która
own
jest
rules
przed jego
to the
dłońmi na
game
stole. I
that
uważam, że
is
to jest
in front of him
niesamowita
or her on
wartość
the
gier
table. And this
planszowych,
is
bo
a wonderful
Państwo
value of
kupiwszy
board games,
2-3
because when you
egzemplarze
buy
gry,
2 or
która
3
kosztuje
board
50-100
games,
zł, na
50,
radę
50 złotys,
pedagogiczną,
100
na budżet
złotys,
szkolny będzie to dużo
for
mniejsze obciążenie niż kupowanie licencji,
school
które
budget.
czasami idą w
It's
setki,
not
jeżeli nie
really
tysiące złotych, ale będą
cumbering,
Państwo mieli narzędzie,
but
które
instead
będziecie
of
mogli
buying the
sobie
license. And this is the
używać.
tool that you can
A jakie
apply.
pionki z tej gry?
For example,
Wezmę
you can say,
planszę,
okay, I
która
will
bardzo mi
take
się
pawns
podoba
from
z tej
this
gry,
game, or I will take the
złożę to
board from the
wszystko,
other game,
wybiorę
and then you can
mechanizmy z
collect
trzeciej gry, którą
everything.
znam i
Maybe
stworzę
I
sobie
can
coś
take
zupełnie
rules
nowego,
and mechanism of the
niesamowitego,
third game, and I can create
oryginalnego,
my
co będę mieć
own
tylko ja i
game, something
moja
original
klasa. I
that
uważam, że
only
to jest
I have and my
niesamowita
class
waga
has.
gier
So I think this is the
planszowych.
most
Ona
important
pozwala
value
na
of the board
niesamowite
games. It allows
pola
for
kreatywności.
an
To
enormous
tyle z mojej strony.
fields
Serdecznie
of
Państwu dziękuję.
creativity.
Widzę, że jest
Thank you very
29 po,
much.
więc
This
udało
is
mi się
it.
zmieścić w czasie.
29 past 2, so
Serdecznie
I
Państwu
managed to
dziękuję za uwagę. Dziękuję
actually
również
be in
za
time. Thank
zaproszenie.
you very much for your attention. Thank you
Częścią
for
z Państwa widzimy się
invitation.
już niebawem na
I will see some
warsztacie,
of
który
you
będę prowadził. Nie mogę
during
się
the
doczekać,
workshop I will conduct.
więc
Can't
oddaję
wait.
głos niczym
So,
dziennikarz na
as a journalist,
scenie.
now I can
Oddaję
tell
głos
you
Oliwie.
that I am now connecting with the studio.